Okay, so we're gonna make RoBud's tracks in this video. I'm gonna go step by step through how to do the left track and then go real quickly speeding through the right track. But you should be able to follow the directions on the left and right track. You just do the opposite. So we're gonna start with the big wheel. For tools, make sure that you've got the nice little Phillips screwdriver. You're gonna want some of these 2mm self-tapping screws, some with the regular pan head, and then you want some with a washer head there. And we're also going to want an Allen key, and for the Allen wrench stuff, we want to use the smallest one on here, which I think is 1.5 mm. So let's get started. So what we've got here, we've got our wheel, our front wheel, the big front wheel, and a hubcap on that wheel. Now, first thing that we want to do is get these guys together. First, let's get one of these bearings in here. You want it to be in there snug. And so when I first did this, I had to use a hair dryer to soften up the PLA very carefully so I could push this in snug. You could also use a heat gun, but heat gun, you'd be careful because it could be too hot and just totally melt everything. You don't want to warp the PLA. You can also do some sanding if you need to. And if it really doesn't fit, let me know and we can update the models. So we put one in there, and then we want to put one in the big wheel too, just like this, so that they're snapped in there good and snug. And then what we've got is we've got this hardware that is generally, I think it's used for rollerblades that I got. The details of it are listed in the description below. But what we can want to do is before we screw these together, we want to take this piece here, this middle piece, and make sure that that is in there. So we put this on here, we put this on here, and then we can screw this mamma jamma together. Okay, now when this is together, you should be able to kind of hold it between your fingers and give it a spin. It should spin nice and smoothly if your fingers don't hit it like mine do. All right, so we got the wheel. Next, let's start working on the main brace here. Put this aside, bring this over here. So here is main brace. First thing, as of making this video, the original model on the STL don't have these two screw holes for this motor. Originally, I had a different motor in here, so these two screw holes I had to drill in myself. I actually burned them through. So if I haven't updated the STL, and I'll put something in this video with a, something right here that says whether I have or not yet, you'll have to make these holes. So to make those holes, what you do is you want to just like take the motor and line it up, see where those holes go, drill them through. It's really simple. Also going to need these 2.5mm screws for this. You should be able to get those from the standoff kit. All right, so let's get this connected first. Oh, and of course, before you do any of this, make sure that you get a liberal amount of wire soldered onto this motor for later. So what have we got on here? Let's see. Probably about 30 centimeters or so. All right, so let's get this hooked up now. It's important for your brace to be 100% infill, because this is going to be carrying a lot of the weight and the bearing most of the load for the RoBud, this and the other brace here. All right, so now that these are in here, I can get them in here like this, line them up with my holes. I should be able to screw this baby in. It's also important that you want your screw heads here to go flush into the brace, because if they don't, then you might hit the wheels. There we go, and that's good. You want this good and snug. You want the motor to be good and snug here, so it's not moving around and then it's not coming off. Okay, so that's on there. All right, this guy's on here. All right, let's go ahead and put this front wheel on. All right, so I messed this up a couple times, so I'm doing a new take because I couldn't remember how the washers fit on. And I think I got it now. So what we want to do is take this guy, and we want to take this guy here, poke this guy through. Now, there are two washers. One has a smaller hole, one has a bigger hole. Put the one with a smaller hole on here, and then we want to take the one with the bigger hole, put it on here, poke that through. So what you want is a washer on both sides of the wheel here. Then we want to screw this in, and for that you're going to need a 4mm hex or Allen key here. So I'll just screw that in, and once that's on there like that, you should be able to take this and be able to do a nice spin. And you see it hits a little bit. You know, it's not going to end the world on this, especially the way that this actually works. Okay, so we got the front wheel on. Now let's work on getting the back wheel and sprocket hooked up. Next thing we want to do is take the flange. This is the flange connector so that we can actually connect up to the motor. And I want to take this piece. This is needed so that we can actually attach the sprocket onto it. So get this guy on here. You want to line up the holes with the holes, and they're going to move around, and it's going to be a little bit of a tricky part once we get this all together. Okay, so after that, go ahead and attach the flange to the motor shaft here, and then tighten that on there real good. Okay, so now the exciting, dang near impossible getting this guy on here. So what we're gonna wanna do is pop this on here with these wheels lined up, and then we're gonna screw screws here, and we want this guy on the back of the flange to catch it and be lined up correctly. All right, I'm back trying to figure this out. Okay, so I got this problem where this piece collar in the back that catches and holds on, fastens the sprocket on, keeps moving down. So I'm actually gonna line these holes up and just kind of take a piece of duct tape and jam it in there to temporarily hold it in place, because I just need it to not slide around while I'm doing stuff. It's jammed in there. Okay, now let's see if this works. I should be able to pop this on and have it, make sure I got the holes lined up again. All right, close enough. Let's see if I can get this to screw in this time now. Oh, and it caught. Very good. Okay, now that I've got two in there, let's get that duct tape out of there. Okay. All right, it's in there. So now what we want to do is take our track, which you want to print out of TPU flexible filament, and make sure that's 100% fill too. And we'll wrap this baby around the front wheel here, and then slide it. It's gonna stretch it here over the back sprocket. Should be good and snug. There we go. I can see this. You can feel the motor going there. Now we want to take sprocket hubcap, put that baby on, and it should snap in. If it doesn't, again, you'll want to heat it up with a dryer so that it will fit. That snaps in like that. And then we can take some screws, screw it in. The regular pan heads fit in this screw size because of how I originally modeled it best. So I'll put those in. You want to make sure that this one is in there and in there good, because when RoBud is turning, it puts a lot of stress on this hub in particular. So you want to make sure that's tight, otherwise it'll pop off all the time. And there you go. There's RoBud's left track. Oops, like a dummy, I forgot a very important part. If we left it like this, these aren't really held tightly together, and it puts a lot of stress at here and here. So what we want to do is we want to put this reinforcement bar on the outside so it connects and holds everything together good and tight. So here's what we're going to want to do for that. The first thing, we do need to take this guy out. So I'm going to go back to my 4mm big guy here. Let's unscrew this. When you unscrew this, be careful. Make sure to put your hand on the other side. Do not drop the screw from the other side. Pick this up. Take this guy, and you see that there is a spot that has a nice inset. That's where you want this. Pop that inset in there, and make sure you get your washer on the other side. That all makes more sense to me now. I knew I was missing something. And screw that baby back in. Okay, now take your bearing here, pop that sucker in this hole. Again, to get it snug, you might need a hairdryer first time. Then what we want to do is take this peg and pop the peg through here. You want the peg to be essentially flush, so put the short side of the peg in here like this. You want the long side of the peg to have as much in here as possible. Pop that in, snap it in, and look at that. Gorgeous. Working great. Okay. Now, let's do the other one real quick. Okay, now let's attach the track to the base. So what we're going to want to do here is take the base. The base is going to sit on the little ledges here in the track, and you can see that these slots fit in to these supports in the base. Now, one thing that's important is that when I initially built this, I had smaller motors, so the base fit all the way flush to the edge, but now it doesn't. So you're going to leave one line of holes here free. This is easiest to do now if we flip this whole thing over. All right. You'll want to use the washer head screws because they will fasten better, and this is going to be load bearing for the whole structure, so you want to make sure you do it right. So you can use as many screws as you want. I don't have quite enough screws to fill in all the holes, but if you wanted to fill it, just screw every hole here, you can do it. Just make sure that you're leaving this first column of holes free outside of the base. So let's start with this one. There you go. Tracks are on. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test our tracks by providing them with 12 volts. Now, to easily get them 12 volts, I've got this USB-C 12 volt adapter. What USB-C allows 3 different voltages, 20 volt, 12 volt, and 5 volt, the classic USB voltage. And there's a little chip on here that sets the voltage that this puts out to 12 volts. So you're going to want to solder on some wires onto the end of this for positive and negative power output. I've got one here that is it's all done. And this you will need for RoBud. This you'll need for RoBud. So go ahead and solder that on if you haven't done it, and come on back to the video when you're done. All right, if you're all done soldering, we can test out our tracks. Now, first thing you're gonna wanna do is lift up the RoBud base onto something so that its tracks are free and they're not gonna hit anything when they move. Then what we wanna do is we wanna take our USB-C 12 volt adapter, plug it in to another USB-C cord. I've got this nice small one here. I'll put a link to all this stuff in the description. And then just make sure that your positive and negatives aren't touching or aren't going to touch so you don't get a short. And we can plug this in to the USB-C output of our power bank. And then if we want to test our motors, we just touch our wires. Make sure we don't short by touching positive to negative together. And there we go. That is our left wheel from RoBud's point of view. And then let's look at the right wheel, the right track from RoBud's point of view. Let's connect those and connect that. And there you go. They're both working. And we have tracks on RoBud now.